you introduced it this way: the rise of connected consumers, innovate or die. Isn't it a little bit extreme?
Veronique, it is extreme, but I do think that we live in interesting times where we are seeing the speed of change at an unprecedented level. And what I really wanted to get the message across was that today the consumers are incredibly tech savvy. They are very much information rich. They are time starved. But also they, of course, are really looking at instant gratification. They want the product now, immediately. And I think that's interesting when you look at the new millennials. And with one of our recent reports called China's Connected Consumers, we really looked at the online consumers, and we did a survey of 10,000 Chinese online consumers. But then we also went off and interviewed a lot of those C-level executives in this ecosystem of e-commerce and e-commerce related type businesses, from payments to logistics to, of course, the e-commerce players. I wouldn't go that far, Veronique. I think
not that extreme.
You know, there is still hope for the traditional bricks and mortar businesses. But without a shadow of a doubt, those traditional businesses really do need to innovate. And that's really the headline of my presentation, Innovate or Die, because I truly believe that if they don't start to change the way they do business, they will become like the next dinosaurs. You know, they will become extinct.
So they should do it now.
So they absolutely should do it now.
So at the conference this morning, you mentioned about many trends, digital trends, so many that I cannot even name them. If you had to pull one out of the lot, what would be it?
Just do a quick review of those trends. You know, I did talk about all of us living in this mobile first economy. You know, the fact is that smartphones today are very prevalent throughout society. Everybody has a smartphone. I talked about digitization and the fact that we are absolutely moving towards this world of digitization. I talked about IoT, the Internet of Things, and we're hearing a lot more about connected devices. I also spoke, of course, about data and data analytics, and probably if I wanted to highlight a key trend, I'd have to say data analytics is going to be probably the one key driver where I see it really changing the landscape for the retailers in a very profound way. And when I look at data analytics and we see what's on the horizon with the likes of, you know, predictive analytics, that is going to be something that is perhaps a little bit scary, but at the same time, we're already seeing it. You know, we are seeing areas such as trend intelligence. And, you know, today retailers are really trying to understand how can they use their data better. And in fact, one of the things that we do at KPMG as well is we help those retailers to really look at that massive data and help them to turn it into actionable insights that they can really work on. It is quite amazing that, you know, that ability and that technology is already here. And we're going to see new boundaries. We're going to see really some new horizons and milestones that are reached in that area. But it is also a very exciting opportunity, because I think if retailers really get to understand the consumer, that holy grail of really understanding this new consumer or this millennial, that is a game changer.
Among the trends that you mentioned, I mean, there's been e-commerce, there's m-commerce, mobile commerce. Now the buzzword is distributed commerce. Can you tell me, I mean, what is distributed commerce exactly?
Well, it's just, again, an evolution, if you like. But I think what we are seeing now is that mobile commerce with our smartphones, that is the new norm. You know, and everybody is using their mobile for just about everything. And I have a lot of clients and a number of them in that e-commerce arena where for them mobile commerce already represents over 80% of their entire business.
And
so
it's growing, right?
And it's growing, and it continues to grow. And I think what we're seeing now with distributed commerce is it's about the now. It really is about now. The new millennials really wanting that instant gratification, but they're able to search for everything on their mobiles, on the social media channels, and they're able to make the decisions now. So we are going to see this new era of distributed commerce. And again, there are going to be people that get left behind, but at the same time, there are going to be people that will, see that, and they'll see those trends, and they will benefit. What's also interesting is we're now seeing this new wave of young, agile retail entrepreneurs that are doing things very differently.
Very avant-garde.
Very avant-garde, and some of them are going to be very successful.
Another buzzword is Internet of Things, which everyone is talking about, including in China with the government talking about Internet Plus. Can you tell us more about that? I mean, since you are based in this part of the world.
Absolutely. I think what is fascinating, of course, now is that we are hearing more and more about the Internet of Things. And that's really going back to where all of our devices are connected. I think that Cisco Systems talked about back in 2015, there were 15 billion connected devices. If we fast forward to 2020, we're looking at 50 billion connected devices. And that is at your home, at work, at play. It is a very, very significant number. Whether it's your home appliances, your car, your smartphone, it really demonstrates that we're all going to be connected. And that number of devices, that really tells me that there's a lot of opportunities. And I think with the Chinese government, at the recent meeting in Beijing, President Xi Jinping also talked about innovation and really talked about Internet Plus, which is, another phrase for IoT. And I think in China in particularly, we are seeing a big focus on technology. And the Chinese consumers today and Chinese businesses, in my view, are really have made huge leaps and bounds, compared with their Western counterparts. And I think really that's what we're seeing today. We're seeing China being very much tech savvy. The government really pushing forward with some very significant technology and infrastructure type projects. But that goes the way through all of the Chinese society, whether it's the government, whether it's the state-owned enterprises, and whether it's the POEs, the privately owned enterprises, and this new wave of Chinese entrepreneurs.
So today, most consumers begin with online search, whatever they buy. I mean, they go and check online first. And you said that the response from retailers is to provide consumers with digital shopping assistant or virtual personal shoppers. That's really
personal shoppers.
Virtual personal shoppers. That's something I really found fascinating. So how do they work?
There was a case just before last week, a couple of weeks ago, where, of course, for the first time, a machine beat the world champion, Go champion, and that was perhaps a tipping point. And I think what we are starting to see now is that people are awakening, and they're now realizing that artificial intelligence is here. Now, obviously, there are that can be very scary to some people, but if you look at the potential, if you look at those possibilities in terms of having a digital shopping assistant being able to reach out and have those dialogues with that artificial intelligence, but also being able to, ensure that you are serving this new generation of consumer. And I think that's, again, very interesting in the fact that these are emerging trends, they're emerging technologies, but we're not talking about 20 years from now. We're not talking about 10 years from now. We are literally talking about within the next 2 to 3 years. We're going to see artificial intelligence taking a role. Now, again, that there are always going to be pros and cons. And without a shadow of a doubt, Veronique, one thing is absolutely going to happen, and that is disruption. And going back to my earlier point about the fact that, you are going to have to disrupt or be disrupted yourself. There's always an opportunity for personalization and customization. We heard that from the conference this morning. Shoppers can be a little bit schizophrenic. So on one hand, they are demanding e-commerce and they're demanding the latest technology, but on the other hand, they still want that human touch. They still want that personalization. They still want to touch and feel, and they still want to be pampered. So, as I mentioned in my presentation this morning, whilst there are going to be significant changes in the retail environment, of course, with e-commerce really driving and that momentum building, and I think I mentioned that Jack Ma, one of the great quotes I like from Jack was, e-commerce is not a business model, it's a lifestyle. People need to recognize that. So I think the interesting thing there is that absolutely, whilst e-commerce is a lifestyle, it's changing the way we do business, it's changing the way we buy things. But there's going to be a flip side, isn't there? There's always going to be that flip side. I talked about, that whole area of showrooming, where, people spend a long time in front of their computers, but they also go out and they look at the shops, they browse around the shops, and then they go home and buy it online. There were 62% of those 10,000 consumers that we surveyed online saying that they were doing showrooming. But there's a flip side, and I think you'll always find that there is a flip side in terms of, equally 42% said that they were web rooming, where they'd spent a lot of time online, but they still wanted to go into that physical store and touch and feel the product and try on those shoes. So, I think there's a balance. And I think, retail, I have to say, Veronique, retail is not dead just yet.
Okay, that's a positive statement. So e-commerce, a lifestyle, but traditional retail, not dead yet.